Hey everyone, this is Joel at Hamina Wireless. In this video, we're going to talk about how to use Hamina to do stadium designs. Now, I'm not going to get into all the specifics of exactly how you should design a stadium. For example, I probably am not the best person to recommend specific access points and antennas and things like that, but in this video, I'll show you just the overall process, what it looks like to do a design in Hamina Network Planner. So let's jump right in. So let's start a design. I'm going to call it Hockey Arena. And I'm going to leave the country at United States, and I'm going to change the environment type to free space, and then we'll hit save. So now we need to bring in a map. In this case, I don't have any fancy CAD files or anything like that. I actually just have the seat map from the arena's website, and this is a PNG format. So there's no 3D geometry or anything like that here. It's just a flat image if we look at it in 3D. Yeah, you can see it's just a flat image. So first thing we need to do is to set the scale. So I'll go to the scale tool and we'll click on one side, click on the other, and we'll type in 60. This is a 60-meter long ice here. There we go. Now we've got the scale set. So then the next thing that we need to do is to draw in our sloped and raised floors to model the stadium in 3D. Now to do this, you're going to need access to Hamina Network Planner Plus. Planner Plus adds the ability, among a bunch of other stuff, the ability to draw raised floors and also sloped floors. Now, this is different from a multi-story building. You can use the standard Hamina Network Planner subscription to do multiple floors and, do all that stuff in 3D, do like holes in the floor for atriums and stuff like that. That's all included in the base Hamina Network Planner subscription, but to do the sloped and raised floors, you will need Planner Plus. So let's start out with the sloped floors. So I'll grab the sloped floor tool, and over here in the Add Sloped Floor pane, notice that there are these two boxes here. There's a lower height setting and an upper height setting. I'm going to change the upper height to 4 meters and leave the lower height at 0. And notice that there's a little yellow dot next to the lower height and a black dot next to the upper height. That will come into play in just a second when we start drawing these in. I'm also going to check the Include Crowd checkbox. We'll come back to that. Okay, so let's draw these in. So to draw in a sloped floor, we're going to left click to start drawing, and then we get a yellow line, and then left click again, and that will finish drawing our lower edge of this sloped area. Then we'll click to draw the upper height, and then left click again to finish drawing it. So now you can see that we've got our yellow line, that's our lower height, and our black line, that's our upper height. You see how they correspond to the dots over here. And if we look at this in 3D, you can actually see the slope there, it represented in 3D. Okay, so the other thing too, real quick, is that if you look at the gradient here, that will tell you the height as well. So we'll probably loop back around to that. That'll come into play a little bit later on. So now let's just finish drawing in the lower seating area. So we'll just do left click, left click, left click, left click, and every now and then it'll start drawing the next one on accident. Just hit the escape key and it'll cancel out of that. So we'll do another left click, left click, left click, left click, and there you go. Now you can see that we're just going around the edges here. So let's just draw this all in really quick. Just a series of left clicks. Okay, this is something that happens every now and then, and I'm kind of glad that it happened here so I can show you how to fix it. So if I hover my mouse over the sloped floor area that we just drew, notice that the black line is on the inside. That's our upper height, and also the gradient is backwards. We try to guess which way the sloped floor is supposed to go, and we get it right most of the time, but every now and then, like in this case, we got it wrong. So here's how you fix it. Grab the edit tool, and then left click on the area to select it. So you see now it's selected, and then right click on the edges of the area to bring up this little contextual toolbar and click on swap heights, and that'll flip it around. And now you can see that it is all correct. So let's go back to our slope floors tool. We'll do our lower edge down here and then our upper edge up here. Look at that. It got it backwards again. We'll come back and fix that in a minute. Now, for this end of the seating area, I'm going to do something a little bit different. We'll do this part right here, just as we did before, still backwards. But this part, I want to model the stairs individually. So the way that I'm going to do this, we'll get nice and close here, and I'm going to draw in our main seating area only here. And notice I'm leaving the aisles. The aisles I'm just leaving alone there. Those are the stairs. I'm going to right click to stop drawing there. Now here, this is going to have to be 2 slopes to model this corner. No problem. I just hit the escape key there since it started drawing the next area for some reason. And then we'll do left click, left click, left click. Okay, here you see what's going on. It's trying to do a snap here. I don't like it. I don't want it to do that. So to fix that, I'm going to hold down the shift key, and now it will let me put that corner exactly where I want. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now let's check it out in 3D. How did we do? Well, we've got a few areas that they're definitely backwards here. We need to fix these. So let's fix that really quick. So I'm going to zoom out so I can see the entire arena. Now, we could go through and individually, click on the area and then right click it and hit that. We could do that. We absolutely could. Or we can use the edit tool to select all these areas and flip them all around at once. Now, there's two different ways that you can use the select tool. If you drag it from left to right, the selection rectangle has to go around something to fully select it. You see how there's these three areas down here, and they only get selected when I completely enclose them in the rectangle. Whereas if we do a click and drag from the right to the left, we only have to touch the edges of one of those areas to select them. So just notice that the left to right and the right to left selection behavior is different, and it gives you a little bit more precision. So we're going to do a left to right just to select these, and then we'll right click on one and hit swap, and now they all get swapped at the same time. So there we go. Okay, but we still need to contend with these stairs over here. One thing I'm going to do really fast, just for performance reasons, is I'm going to turn off the transparency effects. Notice that there's these yellow things that are on top of our seating areas. Remember earlier when we started drawing these, we'll select one here. You can see that I did that include crowd checkbox. That's what this is. This is the crowd. When you add a crowd to this, I think I can turn it off. Yeah, you can turn it on and off right here so you can actually see the difference here. When you include a crowd, we draw an attenuating object on top of the slope that's 1 meter high and attenuates 5 dBs per meter in the 5 gigahertz band by default. Of course, you can change that if you take some measurements and you find out that your crowd is a little bit different. You can absolutely change that. And if you go into the graphics settings, you can turn on transparency effects, and they'll be rendered transparently. Now, I'm doing this on a MacBook Air. This is not a powerful machine. And it does not have active cooling, like most of your laptops and especially a MacBook Pro is. So, and since I'm doing the screen recording, I'm pushing my CPU and GPU pretty hard. I'm going to turn the transparency off just to give it a little bit of extra overhead to help keep things through the video, but you probably won't need to do that if you're not, doing screen recording at the same time like I am. Okay, so back to our stairs. We left those empty here because I want to draw in a different kind of slope floor here. So I'm going to uncheck the include crowd checkbox, and I'm going to check draw stairs. Now watch what happens. If we go in and draw in slope floors in the middle here, that's going to draw in some new slope floors in between here. And if we go and look at these in 3D, okay, I'm just going to abort, try it again. Sometimes that happens. There we go. So now that we've got those drawn in there, let's go back to 3D and notice what we do here. We actually render stairs here. Now, the stairs have no effect whatsoever on the predictive model. When we start placing APs and calculating coverage and do all that stuff, the stairs don't mean a doggone thing. They're just there to look cool. Literally, that's the only reason that they're there. But what we did leave out here is we left out the attenuating object from the crowd. And so that's going to cause the RF to behave differently in those stairs. We will come back to that in a little while when we talk about mounting APs under handrails and things like that. Okay, cool. So now we've got the main bowl area done. Let's do the this walkway around the edges here. This concourse area is just a flat raised floor. So to do this, I'm going to go to the raised floor tool, and we're going to set the height to 4 meters. So it's going to match our upper height here. So let's just go in and start drawing this in. So we're going to draw this in like any other area in Hamina, where you can click and drag to make a rectangle like this. So there we go. There's our raised floor. I can hit Command Z to make it go away. Or we can do a series of left clicks to draw in whatever shape we want. So let's do that. We'll do left click, and sometimes I'm letting it snap to whatever angle it wants to. Sometimes I'm going to hold down the shift key so that it gives me ultimate flexibility. But one thing I do want is I want to snap it to the corners of our slope floors here. So I'm going to right click to stop. So there we go. We've got our first area there. There it is. Hey, let's turn off our crowds. They're still there. I've just turned them off so that now they're not in the way, and it kind of makes it a little bit easier to see what we're doing. So let's go back to 2D now. I'm going to use the space bar and move my mouse to pan around. By the way, that's my favorite way to pan in Hamina. I just keep my thumb on the space bar at all times. Now, one thing I'm going to do up here is instead of snapping to this corner and then snapping to this corner, there is a little bit of wiggle that happens right here because of the stairs that we drew. It's not a perfectly straight line. So I'm going to snap to those corners to keep everything nice and seamless. So we'll go click, and then I'm looking for that corner right there, click. We'll do another one here. Did we even do a stair right there? I might be imagining that, but I think you get the point here. You can definitely see a little bit of deviation from a straight line right there. I'm holding down the space bar and moving my mouse to sort of skateboard around. Okay, now that we got the details, I'm going to zoom way back out. And we'll drop one right here, one right here. You know what? I'm going to hold the shift key down because the snapping was trying to help, but it was kind of getting in my way a little bit. Okay, we go here, and then we go here, and then we left click to stop, and there we go. Now we have our concourse area. It is possible to do a concourse with one piece. You can do a giant, C or U shape or whatever around it and make it perfectly seamless, but I kind of like to break it up into a couple of pieces. That way, if I mess something up, there's not as much backtracking to do to fix it. Okay, cool. So now we need to do the upper area of this arena. So there's this upper seating area here. There is a section up here with box seating and stuff. You can draw walls and do raised floors and do all that stuff. We're not going to get into that today. I'm just going to keep it nice and simple to show you, what you absolutely need to know if you're doing a stadium for the first time. So let's go back to our sloped floor. Now, remember that the last sloped floor that we touched was one that started at 0 meters, ended at 4 meters, and had stairs on it. What if we want to copy our settings from the ones that didn't have, that weren't stairs, that had a crowd on them? What we can do is the last type of thing, anything in Hamina that you touch is going to be copied again when you go to draw more of that thing. I'll show you this a little bit later with the access points, but if you're doing, let's think of an example of an access point. There's an Aruba 215 back here somewhere. If you have Aruba 215s and then you do a bunch of 635s, if you want to duplicate that 215, just go click on one and then go back to the access point tool and start clicking again. It's going to copy the 215. The last AP type that you touched is what's going to get placed when you place more of them. The same is true for sloped floors. So let's go touch a sloped floor. So I'm going to do a click and drag like this to select this one. So 0 meters, 4 meters, and it has a crowd on it. Perfect. So now I'll just click away. So now nothing is selected, and we'll go grab our sloped floor tool and look at the settings. It just copied those. So now we can use these as a starting point. So I'm going to say that this one starts at 6.5 meters and it ends at, I think 10 meters is right. We might mess with this a little bit. So there we go. Now we'll draw this one in. So left click, left click, left click, and left click. Notice that as we drew this in, our scale for our gradient changed a lot because we just added a much taller object that wasn't here before. So now let's look at that in 3D. Oh yeah, that looks really good. The pitch looks correct. Yeah, I like that. So now we can just go through and start drawing in the rest of this. So you know the drill here. Left click, left click, left click. Again, I'm being careful to snap the corners. Check out this one right here. I can actually make it follow that curvature there. But one thing I don't like is I didn't get that line quite straight. So let's go grab the edit tool. I'm going to select it by doing a selection rectangle, left to right. And then I can grab this corner, and now we can straighten it out and make it look pretty much perfect. Yeah, there we go. That looks good. Okay, let's go over to this side. We'll grab our slope floor tool again. Left click, and left click, left click, and left click, left click. This one I'm going to have to freehand a little bit because I can't quite see up there. And there we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, is that one backwards? Is there something weird going on there? No, it's fine. All right, cool. So now we've got basically all of our geometry drawn in here. I'm not going to do walls, but you totally could draw in like the glass around the ice and stuff like that. You could totally do that. Okay, so now that we've got this all done, one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the layer tool and I'm going to hide the sloped and the raised floors because I don't want to mess with them. I don't want to accidentally bump them and cause problems. Notice that we still get them in the 3D view, but now those areas are just no longer visible out here in the 2D view, and so we can't mess with them at all or break anything. So I think the next thing that we're going to do is let's draw in some capacity areas here to say how many devices that we need to support. So I'm going to grab the capacity tool, and if I remember correctly, each one of these areas seats around 80 people. So I'm going to say that we have 50 iPhones, and let's go change this to Android phones and say, I changed to 80. Let's say 40 iPhones, 40 Android phones. Yeah, that should represent a pretty good mix. And we'll just draw a square in here. So now that I've already set this number up, I can just go through and just repeat it over and over and over again. So I'll just go through and draw them in. And I'm not going to do the whole arena, the whole stadium here, just because you don't need to see that. But we'll just kind of focus on this little section right here. I am going to go grab my edit tool, though, and select this one and bump it down to 30. It's a smaller area because of the penalty box there. So there's not going to be as many devices. So we'll just kind of bring that down a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. So now we've got our capacity areas in. We are finally ready to start placing some APs. So let's go grab our access points tool. And let's start out by modeling an under seat scenario. So let's do it with, how about Aruba? Let's do some Arubas. I hung up some 635s this week. So we'll go grab a 635. And I'm just going to drop one out on the ice here. And right now, we're looking at the 6 gigahertz band. I'm going to change that to the 5 gigahertz band. That's where I'm going to focus my design efforts today, but we will come back and take a look at the 6 gigahertz. So here we go. We've got this AP out here on the ice. It's covering tons of the stadium here. Tons of seats actually are going to get coverage from this. And notice underneath the AP, there are these 3 numbers here. That's the 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz channel numbers. So 2.4 gigahertz channel 1, 5 gigahertz channel 52, and 6 gigahertz channel 69. If we place another AP here, it's going to automatically run a channel plan and try to find the best channel plan for these access points. So then underneath those, notice there's 3 more numbers. There's how many clients we're expecting to associate to the 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz radios. We have a problem here. With 2 APs in the middle of the ice, we are expecting to see 110 clients associate to the 5 gigahertz radio on this AP. That's not going to work, obviously. But as we start to do some planning with these, we should see the devices kind of get spread around between all the radios here. So let's start to do that now. So I'm going to take my AP, and I'm just going to click and drag it, and we're just going to move it into our crowd. Watch what happens. Oh, wait, where'd our crowd go? Oh, I know why. It's because I forgot to change the mounting of this AP. So right now we've got it ceiling mounted at 2.5 meters. So ceiling mounted would be, logo facing down basically. Let me grab an AP to show you. Found the 215. I knew it was back there. So if it was ceiling mounted, Aruba logo facing down, it would be mounted like this. But what we're going to do is we are going to change the mounting type to floor. So now it's going to be Aruba logo facing up in this case. And I'm going to change the height from 2.5 to 0 meters. So now it's like right on the floor, sitting like this. Okay, so now let me put this back really quick. So now let's slide it into the crowd and watch this. This is what I wanted to demonstrate. Yeah, there we go. Much more like it. Since the access point is inside the crowd, now we see that it doesn't propagate nearly as well. If you emptied out the stadium, if you took all the fans, they all went home, the RF is going to fly out everywhere. Whereas when you have people sitting in the seats, they're going to do a nice job of attenuating that signal, which is great for helping us avoid co-channel interference and things like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and just start placing some APs here. Just dropping some APs. I'm thinking 4 APs per section. Maybe we can get away with 2 in this section here. And notice that a couple of things are happening. Okay, this section just feels bigger. And so I'm going to put 6 there, and then I think we go back to 4 right here. So a couple of things are happening here. First off, notice that we're automatically running that channel plan for you. So you can see which channels this AP is on, which channels this AP is on. Underneath each AP, we get the 3 channel numbers. We also get the client count for each AP. So remember earlier when we defined this capacity zone, we said 40 iPhones and 40 Android phones. What we're doing here is we know the roaming behaviors and the band preferences of those clients. And so they basically get teleported into place, and then we run a quick simulation to say which radio are they most likely to associate to. So if we look at all of these APs, I don't see anything with more than 20 clients per radio. Like if we look at these 2 guys right here, maybe I'll nudge that one around a little bit. We can see that this has 16 clients on the 5 gigahertz radio. This has 17 clients here. We're actually doing really good for client count here. I don't see any radios that are getting overloaded here. Now, of course, I didn't define any clients anywhere else in the arena, but I'm going to assume that those areas are also going to have radios in them to soak up clients, and it's going to be about the same amount of clients. So let's do a little bit of experimentation here. Now, one thing I'm going to do, just to kind of clean things up, I'm going to turn the heat map off. So no heat map for now. Maybe we'll nudge an AP around a little bit just to kind of clean things up. Let's go into our channel planning really quickly. And I'm going to just turn off all the 2.4 gigahertz radios. So we'll just turn those off entirely. And now we're going to simulate, where do all the clients go? Well, everything moved up to the 5 or the 6 gigahertz band. And also, I'm seeing green for all these radios. And so we haven't gone over any thresholds for how many clients are on a given radio. So let's mess with those thresholds a little bit. So down here, you can see this little popover. This will show you some stats from a capacity perspective. So we've got 20 radios in the 5 gigahertz band, 20 radios in the 6 gigahertz band. If we turn 2.4 back on, let's go back into the channel planning and do that. We'll just say disable unnecessary radios. So it's going to disable some of our 2.4 radios. So we're ending up with 12 2.4 gigahertz radios enabled right now. So let's go back and turn that back off. So we'll go disable all and hit save. There we go. So if we go look at clients, we can see we've got 286 clients in the 5 gigahertz band. We've got 94 clients in the 6 gigahertz band. And if we go over to the limits, you can see what our thresholds are here. Basically, when will we turn one of these little labels red? So if we expand that, we can actually configure this. And so we could say, well, we really don't want more than 20 clients per radio. So let's just change it to 20. And did we go over anywhere? No, we didn't. We're still looking really good. Let's go crazy and bring it down, just for sake of example, down to 10. And now you can see that some of our radios are now over capacity. So I'm going to bump that back up to, let's say, like 25. You could probably do more than that, depending on the use case. It totally depends on what the users are doing. But one final thing that you can do with this is you can also specify how many 6 gigahertz capable clients you have on your network. Let's say that it was 3 years ago, and there are no 6 gigahertz capable clients here. We could slide that all the way to 0. And now we see that, for example, behind the penalty box here, both of these radios have gone over the threshold that we set. But in a few years from now, maybe there's, 75% 6 gigahertz capable clients. Things balance out really nicely. So you can use that to kind of look and see, like, what's the future going to look like? And I've been amazed at how quickly 6 gigahertz has happened. I mean, it's just been really, really quick that we've been seeing all these devices supporting the 6 gigahertz band. Okay, so that's a little bit about how to use the capacity planning. Let's turn our heat map back on, and let's talk about some alternative mounting techniques or AP placement techniques. So under seat is one way to do it, but let's do an overhead design now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command A to select everything. And I'm going to click on access points here to select all of my access points. Now, this is a great way to make bulk changes like transmit power changes, height changes, all that kind of stuff. But the reason I'm going to use it here is so I can drill down to these APs and delete them. So I'm going to hit the delete key, or the backspace key. Notice, though, that we didn't get rid of our capacity areas. Those are still there. But just to be safe, I'm going to hide those. So capacity areas, we're going to hide them. We'll bring them back in a minute or two. So now let's go do something with a directional antenna. So I'll go grab an AP here. Maybe a good one to use. I actually have one right here. This is a Cisco 9166. This looks like an omnidirectional AP, but it's actually got a directional antenna built in. So the pattern kind of comes out the front, kind of like this. We'll look at it in 3D, but just a good example. Very convenient that I have one here. So let's go grab a Cisco, and we'll change this to 9166D1. So Cisco 9166D1, there's the antenna pattern for that. By the way, if you want to view the patterns for the internal antenna on an access point, go to the preferences right here and check this box right here. Internal antenna pattern viewer. That will show you the antenna patterns for all access points, all antennas, all access points. So 9166D1, we'll select that. Now we can already see the directionality of this AP, but it's on the ground. So let's bring it up. The ceiling in here I think is 12 meters high, so we'll change it to 12. And let's give it some down tilt. So I'm going to point it down maybe 45 degrees down, and there we go. Now it's covering this area. Let's bring back our capacity zones. So we'll click on the layer menu and bring back our capacities. And you can see it's got like 236 clients in the 6 gigahertz band. that AP is not going to be happy at all. But the 9166 is a good example of an AP with an internal antenna that you could point down into the audience to grab a bunch of those clients. Let's do something with an external antenna connector. So I'll delete all of these clients, APs rather. And so we did Aruba, we did some Cisco. Let's do some Juniper Mist now. So I'll go grab a Juniper. Let's go do something with an external antenna connector. How about a 45E? We'll do a 45E. So this is the AP45 with an external antenna connector. And now we can go shop around and look at some third-party vendors. Exceltex, I think, is one that Juniper works with all the time. And I kind of like to go through here and shop for antennas. Now, there are some specific antenna models that we have included in Hamina that specifically work with the AP45E. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head. So, go look at Exceltex website or whatever you need to do. I'm just going to take a wild guess, though. And here's this 2456 477. It's got about a 7 dB antenna pattern. Yeah, let's try it. Yeah, that's got a pretty narrow beam width. Let's give it 45 degrees of down tilt again. Yeah, that's pretty good. I kind of like how narrow that is. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I want to do some capacities up here as well. So what I'll do is let's just go grab our capacity tool. There it is. And yeah, 40 and 40 again. That looks good. So we'll just draw in some sort of upper capacity zones very quickly here because I want to show what you can do kind of like covering some lower and upper areas. That looks good. One thing I am going to do, though, is this area, I'm going to bump this down to like 25 and 25, though, since it's a smaller area. There we go. Really what I'd want to do is count seats and figure out, like how many seats are there in each spot here. So now what we can do is we can kind of mess around with our APs a little bit here. And let's kind of find a system that helps spread around all of our clients how we would need to. So I'm just going to go through and drop a handful of these in here. Notice that, again, it's retaining the settings from the last one that I touched, which is, pointing north right now. And we'll give it a second for the channel planner and all that to run. You can see it's doing the heat map calculation if you look at the progress bar up there. And my machine's working pretty hard right now. We're doing a lot of stuff in 3D and a lot of calculations. But we're still way above that, 30, 40 client per AP limit here. Not great. So I think we need to break this up a little bit, and we need to add some more APs to kind of fill this in. So what I'm going to do to help out with this is I'm going to select all of my access points, and I'm going to change the down tilt to something a little more shallow. Let's go for like 25. Can we go for less? Can we go for like 10 degrees of down tilt? Oh, okay. We're going to go for just basically pointing at the horizon. Maybe not a great strategy. You might want to look around and find something with a tighter antenna pattern instead of doing this, but I think it's fine for the sake of example. I think you understand what I'm doing here. So then let's go do a second variant of this. I'm going to turn off the heat map for just a second. We're going to go place another AP. We'll just drop it down here. I'm going to go change the color. We're going to make this one red, and we're going to give it something like 60 degrees of down tilt. So way, way more down tilt. So let's go turn our heat map back on, and notice that now this one covers a much lower area. How about 90 degrees? Straight down, 80 degrees. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I like that. So see how we're not even quite covering that upper area, and I like that. That's really good. So let's place more of these. So I'm just going to click away from it. So now we're back to our Add Access Point tool, and I'm just going to go through and add another AP every other AP. And on these corner ones, I'm going to point the direction arrows out to the corners just a little bit to kind of represent how they would fill in those corner areas. So now if we look at our client counts, it's definitely better now. So we've definitely improved things quite a bit. We still have a few radios that have, getting close to that 40 client mark. But that's just because we have a lot less access points. We have fewer access points now covering more seats since we added capacity to those upper seating areas. And when you do the underseat stuff, with the attenuating objects and all that, it just makes for really small coverage cells and helps out with the capacity stuff quite a bit. So I'm sure that you could do a better job than I have done here. You could use You could use external antennas that have a tighter beam width or something like that to break up these contention domains, to break up these coverage cells, and I think that would help a lot. One thing I want to check on really quickly is let's go look at our interference. How are we doing for interference? So far, we're doing okay. It actually looks like we don't have a significant amount of co-channel interference here, and that is probably just because we haven't planned out the whole arena yet. We have this one spot right here where I can hear a couple of APs on the same channel right there. If we go look at our channel settings, you can see that we're letting Hamina automatically choose a 20, 40, or 80 megahertz channel width in the 5 gigahertz band. We've given it all of the channels in the regulatory domain to work with. If we go click on an access point, we can see what channel width it's using. So we're using 40 megahertz wide channels in the 5 gigahertz band. I guarantee that as you place more of these APs, you're probably going to start to see interference. It's probably going to try to pull this down to a lower channel width. You know what? Let's just do it. Let's just do it really quick. So I'm going to turn off our capacity. I'm just going to select a big area really quick here. All the APs. Hit Command-C, Command-V. And then now we have this full new set. Notice that the interference goes crazy now. Okay, I'll grab all these. And then I think we can just rotate them all at the same time. Oh, yeah. Heck yes. There we go. So now we have doubled the amount of APs here. But we're doing okay for co-channel interference. It's actually still not having any trouble, even though we have backed down to a 20 megahertz wide channel. It's doing okay just because they're directional antennas. So yeah, not bad. Okay, so now let's go take a look once again at coverage, and I'm going to get rid of all these access points. Did we get rid of our coverage areas? Let me just double check. No, they're still there. Yeah, good. And let's go talk about the stairs that we did earlier. Let's go do some handrail mounted APs. So going back to 3D really quickly, remember that we had our stairways over here that we modeled individually. Not really necessary, but just looks really nice. Let's take a look at our crowds. That's where our human crowds are. What I'll do is I'll turn off the human crowds, and let's go back and grab, let's come full circle and go back to our Aruba 635. And let's say that you're going to put this in like a special enclosure or something like that that's meant for hanging these underneath the stairwells. So we'll take that AP, and I'm going to switch it to a wall or pole mount. And so now you see there's a direction arrow. That's basically the direction that the Aruba logo is facing in this case. So now let's bring the height down to maybe 0.5 meters, and let's stick it in the aisles, essentially. So there we go. There's that access point there. We'll drop another one here. Drop another one here, another one here. We need to do 2 right here, so I'll drop them both there. Then hit 1 to grab the edit tool, and hold down shift and grab both of these, and then point them like that, and there we go. So now we've got those APs situated on the handrails in the aisles. Now we're not quite getting into the crowd like I would hope to, so what we would probably have to do here is boost the transmit power. So I just did a Command-A. We'll click on access points so only those are selected, and we can say, yeah, let's go up to 14 dBm. And we can start to push those coverage areas further into the crowd here, although I do have my threshold pretty high. I have it set to negative 65 dBm. Neg 67 I would imagine would be fine, so we can help out a little bit by getting that. Maybe going up to 0.8 meters would help. So you can see how you could use this strategy to get to a place where you could have APs, on the handrails, for example. Maybe there's some more handrails here that just aren't marked on the seat map. All right, I think that pretty much wraps up the basics of how to do stadium and arena design in Hamina Network Planner Plus. Now, of course, if you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to us at support@hamina.com. We're always happy to help out however we can, and hopefully I'll see you in a Hamina video really soon. Bye now.